Can you turn down the music?
Turn it down or stop it?
Turn it down to 1%. Okay. How's everyone going? Good? Yeah, excited? Yeah? How's the sausage rolls? Pretty good? Anyone here know that Soph's mum's an ex-chef? Yeah? So you're getting very professionally made, and she felt very offended when Soph suggested to get party pies from the supermarket. So she was like, no, I'll hand make them. Hand make them. They're also cheaper that way too. But yeah, welcome. Thank you all for making your way out to us and, coming to learn something. It means a lot to us. This is our first info night that we're going to hold, which is pretty cool. And yeah, so to start it off, I can do this wirelessly. Woo! And then I can also make confetti. Yeah, let's go. Woo! Cool. Before I get started with the actual presentation though, I'd like to go around the room and sort of ask everyone what their previous experience is, what sort of climbing they've done. Maybe they've already have done some climbing, or maybe they have some goals in climbing, or maybe they've been climbing on and off for years, or they just started at the gym. I think it would be really, really nice to see where everyone comes from, because I think every skill level could sort of learn something from this, even if you know a little bit of it as well, okay? So I'll start with you, Nathan.
You want to come up there?
No, you can just sort of...
Hi, I'm Nathan. I've been climbing on and off for about 5 years, taking it seriously the last 2. Prior to that, my background's mostly in scrambling and hiking and a lot more endurance-based stuff, so snowy mountains, scenic room, and a little bit in the UK. There we are.
Cool.
Alright, my name's Emma, guys. Hey, everybody. I have been outdoor climbing when I was like a teenager with my stepdad. Loved it, but have no idea how to set up anything because that was all done for me. And then when I was living in Brisbane about 10 years ago, I did top rope indoor climbing down there for about 5 years. And then since the bouldering centre's opened up here, which I'm sure many of you are from, I've started climbing again.
Cool.
So that's me.
I'm Laverne. I started actually doing Ninja Warrior, and then I went to speed climbing, and then into just top rope climbing. That did like top rope climbing for about a year, then moved into Toowoomba and joined the gym as soon as it opened. And yeah, done a little bit of outside climbing, not much at all.
Cool.
I'm Sam. I don't have much experience at all other than indoor climbing. I've done the really big ones a couple times, but mostly just bouldering at the gym in here.
Cool. Brian?
I'm Brian. I started bouldering when the gym opened. I'm now a bit addicted. And then I've done a bit of abseiling before, but never setting anything up, so you know.
Cool.
But actually, my head is not quite.
Sorry, I'll go to Jack. Jack, introduce yourself.
Hello,
And what's your previous experience of climbing?
I climbed out at White Rock with Nick and all them, and I climb at the climb gym, as a lot of you probably recognise me already.
Yeah. Cool. Regan?
Regan. Mouth is empty now, so I can talk. I started climbing seriously when the bouldering gym opened. Prior to that, I did top roping maybe once a year. Before that, I climbed outdoor once, and I've abseiled probably 2 or 3 times a year for the last 4 years.
And that's with Scouts?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Sarah, do abseiling and top rope for a lot of the time through Scouts. I do have my abseiling training qualifications, so I can set up the actual rigging for abseiling. And then, bouldering once it opened in Toowoomba.
Cool. Jessie?
I'm Jessie.
Hi,
Jessie. Before the bouldering gym opened up, I had pretty much just done like maybe some rock climbing with school camp, or very, very rare, maybe like twice or something. I went bouldering a couple of times in Brisbane with my older brother Josh, who some of you might have now met because he's moved to Toowoomba. And then when this gym opened up, I was really excited because I was just starting to get sad about the fact that we didn't have any climbing gyms. So, but yeah, cool. all bouldering pretty much. I haven't done top rope aside from like once or twice when I was a kid.
Cool. Rochelle?
Rachel.
Oh, so I was so close.
That's alright. I literally just started bouldering in March when I went there with a friend, and I was like, then I got my brother into it. I was like, oh, it was really fun. Let's go. And he's like, yeah, I'll be wanting to, and so then we have, and that's it from me.
All right.
I'm not as experienced as everyone else.
Dan. There we go. I remember.
So, relatively new. I watched the bouldering at the Olympics and thought it was pretty cool. And then the gym opened up. It was good timing. So, pretty much done all that. I went to White Rock with Jack, and I went to Passchendaele or Darwin's Castle with someone in Stanford. So that's pretty much my extent outdoor climbing.
Cool. Matthew?
Matt, yeah, pretty new to it all. Always liked it growing up, watching it, and yeah, just fairly fresh since the gym opened up. And, yeah, trying to get more into it.
Cool.
Hey, I'm Adam. I've been climbing for 3 years from Melbourne, climbed in Sydney and Brisbane as well. Did a bit of top roping, bit of outdoor bouldering as well.
Cool.
Hey, I'm Emily. Been bouldering for the last 2 years. Yeah, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, now here.
Spectacular. Cool. Well, it sounds like everyone has a little bit of a lot of different experiences and different starting points as well. Some people come from different states, and some people are ex-gymnasts and stuff like that that he didn't mention. But yeah, which is yeah. No, I'm just saying it helps with your climbing, I suppose. But that's cool.
Mitch, what's your background?
I'll get to that. Don't worry. I forgot to mention, if you guys need the bathroom at all, feel free to just head straight out, and it's out the back to the left. So you just got to head outside, and you'll see the light on. It's all sorted for you. So no need to worry. Or at any point, feel free to get up and grab some more Strolls. Or there's water. There's cold water, and then there's tea as well. If you want, it's peppermint tea, hot, not cold tea. If you have a preference. Sorry if we couldn't serve you cold tea. But yeah, one thing to note with this presentation though is there is a few activities, mainly just one activity in this one, that is a little bit interactive. So there will be a QR code that will pop up. Feel free to scan that with your phone and you'll be able to answer some questions. That same QR code leads you to any Q&As if you have any questions that you want answered at the end. Otherwise, feel free to raise your hand, and I'll do my best to answer anything that you have to pop up, really. But yeah, before I actually get into the meaty part of the whole presentation, I have to display this lovely disclaimer that climbing is a very high-risk activity that, if done wrong, can definitely lead to major injuries or death. Okay, so if you're going out climbing, please make sure you go out with someone experienced and who knows what they're doing, and don't just straight after this head out to the rock, especially at night time, and try and set up something in the dark, or just generally, okay? Make sure there's always somewhere there to look at it and make sure that you're doing things right. So I do have to display that, and I will leave it up there for a split second for you guys to have a read of, because that will be on every one of our info nights. So yeah, basically, lovely disclaimer. Does anyone have any questions so far? No. Spectacular. Well, please don't sue us. This is free. We would love to increase the climbing here, but technically, we're not got the big $5,000 guiding qualifications for that sort of stuff, and we technically don't have the insurance for that stuff. That's why it's all free and community, rather than making you guys pay, because the more people who get to climb, the more fun it is, really, especially if you have to drive 2.5 hours to the nearest climbing place.
And more people come to your store and buy more things.
No, it's the community, Jack. But there is a really cool climbing shop in Toowoomba now, so... I don't know. I think it's around the corner.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it this one?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, no, not cool at all. But, I mean, yeah. Who am I? I know I'm famous, according to Jack. Jack says I'm famous. But, But basically, I'm going to tell you a bit about myself. That's why I got you guys to tell me about yourself. But a bit about me. I got a lot of climbing photos here that make me look really cool. I've been climbing for about 5 years, since 2020. 1 year indoor, 4 years outdoor. I was an outdoor guide working at River Life in Brisbane, doing kayaking, climbing and abseiling for many different people, aged 7 up to 97 was my oldest. Yeah, they like to jump off the cliffs there. But yeah, I also ran a rock climbing club for 2 years, and I am technically a life member within 4 years, which means I've contributed greatly. During that time, I've learnt all my skills through the clubs, and I've taught many skills through the clubs as well. And likewise, I was a senior outdoor guide, so I was teaching skills through that as well to other guides so that everything is nice and safe. So that's a bit about my background. I've climbed throughout Australia, mainly on the southeast coast, or the east coast, not the southeast. Glasshouse, Nowra, Blue Mountains, Hinterland, lots of different places. I've also climbed over in Europe, which is awesome. The mountains there are way bigger than here, unfortunately. I wish we lived somewhere with big mountains, but no. And a fun fact about me, I'm a gear nerd. Ask me anything about any piece of gear and I will probably know something technical about it that you probably didn't think of. So that's my one fun fact for you tonight. But yeah, so it's nice to formally meet a lot of you, formally, but I've seen a few of you around, maybe not really spoken to you, or maybe you don't know me super personally, but that's basically me. But yeah, tonight, this is what we're going to be covering, okay? So 5 main topics for a good introductory session. Introducing climbing and climbing disciplines, so all the different types of climbing there are, and sort of how you get into each of the types of climbing. Climbing in Southeast Queensland and the organisations that are involved with that. Leave no trace ethics, which is super important. Types of climbing gear, got lots of types here that we're going to go through and going to do some activities with that. And if we get time, we're going to go through the most important knots for climbing, which is going to be a nice little hands-on activity as well. Then we'll have a quick recap and Q&A at the very end if you want. But yeah, mainly, I'm going to throw out a question here. It's going to be a very foundational question that you guys are going to be like, that's a pretty simple question, but what is climbing? Yeah? Sounds pretty simple, right? What is climbing? And Google says that climbing is the sport or activity of climbing mountains or cliffs. Yeah?
You can climb trees.
Exactly. That's a very simple little definition of climbing, right? Because I know lots of you come from the gym, and the gym isn't a cliff or a mountain, yeah? It's an indoor bouldering gym, which is a different type of climbing, yeah? So Google gets it wrong. But I'm going to ask you guys, can you scan this QR code? And it will open up to a lovely little thing for you. You're all like, oh, I have to get my phone out. I love to make things interactive. Joke answers around. Hold on. It'll pop up in a second. Where is it? QR code. There you go. And as you type in your answers, I want any type of climbing you know. So I gave one hint away. Bouldering is a type of climbing. So feel free to type that in as well. And your answers will pop up on the screen. Bouldering, yep. Cool. Speed climbing. Top rope, lead. Ooh, mountaineering. Nice. Ice. Hopefully not that type of ice I'm thinking of. But yeah, trad. Canyoning, mountaineering, indoor, outdoor, free soloing. Oh, that's a big one.
Tree.
Tree? Windmill. Yeah, cool. getting bigger and bigger. Caving, deep water. I mean, that's swimming, right? Any related skills, if you want to put any related skills down, there are some.
Just go up.
Just go up, yeah.
That kind of basis, just all climbing.
I like how corporate ladder's in the middle.
Everyone's just started typing corporate ladder, you know. It should be displaying the biggest one as the one in the middle, so. Yeah, corporate ladder apparently for everyone. Cool, big wall, just go up, that's definitely Jack. Abseiling, scrambling, windmill, caving, tree. Anyone can think of any more? Urban?
I'll put bouldering up there.
Building, yeah.
I've heard people call it that.
Yeah, buildering is the climbing of buildings. So climbing in between buildings and building structures like trusses and, you know, through bridges and stuff, which is pretty cool. Mountaineering, anyone know what mountaineering is?
Is it not just like long form hiking going into
Basically, imagine Mount Everest, okay, that's the easiest analogy. Mount Everest, you know, climbing up Mount Everest, it's a climb, but it's also a big hike, and that's mountaineering. Yeah.
It was just like where you see a goat on the side of a building.
So anywhere where there's a goat, yeah, it's mountaineering. Cool. It looks like it's slowed down. There is definitely, yeah, building, scaling, deep water. Deep water soloing, I would say. It's surprising. You guys know a lot of different types of climbing, which is great. Don't fall. Okay, yeah. Definitely not. Now, would you be surprised to know that there is more types of climbing in here as well? If I switch back to my awesome PowerPoint. And I've made a little diagram. If it wants to pop through. There we go. Cool. So this is my little diagram of climbing. Now most of you will be on that indoor climbing stage, yeah, where most of you are bouldering here at the gym, and you've probably done some top rope climbing as well. You can get into lead climbing indoors from top rope climbing if you take any sort of courses out at Urban or stuff like that, anywhere that has a lead wall basically. And you probably would have seen speed climbing in the Olympics. Lots of people say that that's not real climbing, but it is. Lead, speed and boulder are the three Olympic sports for climbing that got introduced in 2020 with the Tokyo Olympics. They were all combined, and now for the next Olympics, they're all going to be a separate medal, which is spectacular because imagine being a sprinter and being asked to run a marathon, and that's the difference between lead and speed. One's really quick, 100 meters sprints, and then one's pretty long. So that's like your, I wouldn't say your marathon running, but you know, your 1,000 meters, I suppose. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, speed climbing, you're doing the same climb over and over and over again. You'll notice that outdoors, there is a lot more stuff involved because there's lots of different types of outdoors. Does anyone have any outdoor things that they have never heard of before?
Via Ferrata.
Via Ferrata. Via Ferrata is basically where they drill big metal things into the cliff, like steps basically, and you have like big wires and you're connected by a tether, and you basically walk across all of that across the mountains. So I was going to show you a photo, but they're stuck up. But yeah, anything else in there that someone might not know? Highballing? Yeah. So you've got bouldering, which is obviously 4 to 5 meters on a mat, yeah? And then you go into highballing, which is a bit longer, about 8 meters. Can be longer as well. But then you sort of approach that territory of free soloing, where if you keep going, it's no longer a boulder and it's no longer a high ball, but now it's a free solo. So that's sort of the progression. High balling is usually when it's not tall enough to have a bolted route, so like 8 meters. It's not really worth putting bolts in there to protect yourself. So instead you fall on mats, probably like 2 or 3 stacked up on each other. Base jumping. Anyone heard of base jumping? Yeah, a few. It is basically free soloing, but if you fall, you open up a parachute and save yourself. But obviously that comes with a risk of falling too early and not having enough time to open a parachute. So a lot of free soloists have died in a base jumping accident. Yeah. Now, sport and trad, that's pretty much like what most people will get into outdoors. And then via ferrata, alpine climbing is just climbing high up through the mountains. It's not quite mountaineering because you're not going for like super glacier travel and stuff. You're just traveling through mountains. We already spoke about mountaineering. There's also tree climbing, not to be confused with arborism. Tree climbing, you sort of climb the tree all the way up to the end and then you come back down. Arborism, you're up there to cut the tree down. Big walling. Someone has a goal to go on a big wall, which is great. A big wall is just a really big wall, about 600 meters or so, where you're expected to camp on the wall as you're traveling up. And obviously there are bigger big walls and smaller big walls. Australia only has one big wall in the entirety of Australia, and it's not really a big wall.
Where is said big wall located?
I have no idea. I only know that there is one. So, yeah. Google. I was like, wait, that sounds familiar. No. Cool. In terms of how this chart relates to our info nights, though, is I've highlighted them. The red is probably what we're mainly going to be focusing on. So indoor bouldering, top rope climbing, outdoor bouldering, sport climbing. And then the green, which is lead climbing, high balling, and multi-pitch climbing, is sort of going to be a bit more like specialty, like not like the main sort of stuff, but like once you like learn more, that's sort of going to be like specialized lessons, I suppose. Definitely not going to be teaching you guys free soloing or deep water soloing or base jumping. And because there's not really many places to practice big walling, we're probably not going to be doing any of that too. And because Australia is very, very hot, we're not going to be doing any ice climbing either. So yes, that's pretty much where it stands with how it relates to the info nights, to spell it out to you guys. But what is climbing? Bouldering? You guys know what indoor bouldering is. There you go. Look at those awesome people up on the wall. You all know that. Yeah, I'm going to skip to outdoor bouldering. Same thing, except it's outdoors, not very colourful. And you land on this padded mats as well, called bouldering pads or crash pads, depending if you're American or UK. Yeah, you all know what bouldering is. It's about 4 or 5 meters. High balls go up to 8 meters. We spoke about that. But the main thing is top rope climbing and how it compares to lead. Top rope climbing, you'll notice that this lovely person up on the wall is held by a rope. And that rope is going up through a very, very tippity top anchor and coming back down to the ground. That is different to what we call lead climbing, because lead climbing, you don't have a rope above you, you have the rope below you. And there's these little protection points throughout the route. Indoors, it would be every meter. Outdoors, it's a little bit more different depending on the rock. That if you fall, you will fall to your last piece of protection, okay? So that means that if you're 2 meters above your last piece, how far are you falling? 4 meters, yeah, because you have 2 meters of rope out. So you're 2 meters above, you get to the same spot, but you still have 2 meters of rope out. So you're gonna fall 4 meters. Plus the rope will stretch, so you'll fall further because of the rope stretch. And your belayer, who's the guy holding the rope down the bottom, because you're falling so far, he's going to come up and you're going to fall further, basically. So definitely a lot more risk of falling in a lead climb versus a top rope, because top rope, if you fall, you're going to only fall like 30 centimeters, which is a lot more safe. So yeah, we'll definitely get, when we go outdoors first time, get you guys all sorted out on some top ropes. Nice, easy, fun stuff. But yeah, that sort of is the difference between lead and top rope. Now in an indoor setting, like I said, they'll be like 1 meter apart and you'll have to clip the rope as you go up. And it's a really good point to show that what you're clipping these, what we call quick draws to, which is just 2 carabiners connected to the wall, which part you're connecting it to is basically the difference between what we call sport climbing and traditional climbing, or trad climbing, okay? Anywhere where there is a hard fixed bolt in the wall, like here, that's how you know it's sport climbing, okay? Because it's fixed there, typically to reduce weight and stuff like that, hence why it's sport. The difference to that is traditional climbing, where we actually don't want to leave anything behind. So you start to jam things into cracks, like here, and that's not a bolt. So that's how we know that it's traditional climbing, using sort of equipment like this, to give you a little bit of a show. Lots of different types of equipment that go into trad climbing. Lots of different types, and they all involve sort of different constrictions or jamming or camming movements, where you're just like sort of trying to slam that little piece of gear in the rock. And if you don't place it good enough, it can pop out. And if you place it too good, you won't ever get it back because it's stuck, okay? So you want to place it just right. And you can also use natural features in the rock to sling, is what we call them, to give you some protection on that as well. But that moves us on to our next topic. You know, trad, cool, but if you don't know where to climb, you won't be doing any climbing. So climbing in southeast Queensland and the organisations involved, that's our next topic. The main thing is, how do we know where we can climb? And there's 2 main resources that you can use to know where and when you can go climbing. The first one is a website, what we call the ACAQ. It's an online database of every climb, or most climbs throughout the world. It's updated regularly, and you can get up-to-date warnings and information on that crag and see who's actually climbing at those places and how much it's, how many people have been climbing there. But it does require internet, and obviously that's not an option out in the good old nature where reception can be a bit spotty. So you can rely on guidebooks as well, which are specific books that you can purchase that typically have more quality information, so actual photos of the climbs with good topographies of where the climb goes, good descriptions, stuff like that. But they can be a bit more outdated because obviously they get released and they don't get updated for a few years. But they can be viewed without internet. They do cost money. That's the trade-off. In terms of climbing around here, around Toowoomba, this is a lovely map. It's a bit hard to see because obviously it covers a lot of ground, but I'll zoom it in. So this is Toowoomba, right here, if you can't read. There you go, Toowoomba. And then you'll notice up here is a lovely little circle that has a number. It says 115 in it, and it's got a few colours on the outside. So 115 is the number of climbs in that area, and the colours represent the different styles of climbing. Blue represents sport climbing, orange represents traditional climbing or trad climbing, and red represents bouldering. Don't worry about any of the other colours, they're sort of unknown or very niche stuff, like aid climbing. So as you can tell, here in Toowoomba, we really only have one main place. There's some bouldering up in Crow's Nest, And out here, it's sport and unknown territory, but that crag is actually closed because it's on private land. So mainly stuff there, stuff there. There's also some bouldering down in Warwick as well. So in terms of what's close to us, SEQ is currently closed as well. Mainly sport climbing. It's undergoing a mountain transformation at the moment, where they're bolting a whole bunch of new routes and mountain bike trails and stuff like that. So yeah, you can't climb there either. Moving across more towards the coast though, you definitely have a lot more options. Flinders and White Rock are your two closest ones. Flinders for more sport climbing, White Rock for bouldering. A few people have gone to White Rock. It's probably the best bouldering spot around. Lots of options, lots of climbs. 345 climbs. Kangaroo Point, easiest to access because you've got the top of the cliff that you can access. You just walk up the stairs, the really, really painful stairs. Cedar Creek has also got bouldering as well. And then you've got bouldering and sport climbing further down in the hinterland on the Gold Coast. And you've got the Glasshouse Mountains as well, and you've got mountains further from the Glasshouse Mountains as well. Glasshouse has lots of climbing as well. So those are options of like the main places of climbing, yeah?
So, have you been to the ones on Morton Island and
I have not, no.
That's interesting, because aren't they mostly sand? Is it just sandstone?
Yeah, it would be a lonesome boulder on the beach that people would be like, I'm going to climb that and I'm going to log it so that people know.
The Champagne Pools where there's rock you can climb.
But as you can tell, 2 and 6 and 22, there's not really too much out there. You probably want to go to a place that has a bit more. And the guys that have the highlighted names are sort of the better, more popular stuff that people go to. So, why is there not more climbing around us or in southeast Queensland? Do you guys know the reason? Small mountains? No.
That's weird considering we're top of the range.
Yeah, we're on top of a range, you know, there's the gap, there's...
People doing it?
There could be less people.
To do with access in national parks.
Ooh, getting closer, getting closer. No, you are pretty onto it. The reason why there's not more climbing around us is a big problem, but it's also got multiple parts. One is, yeah, definitely population, demand versus, supply, I suppose. But it's also, we can't go developing any cliff and just any random cliff into a crag because there's lots of stipulations around that. Mainly because climbing in Australia, believe it or not, is a privilege and not a right. Okay, according to the legislation and stuff like that, we don't have the right to climb. It's a privilege to be able to climb, okay? I know a lot of people don't and won't agree with that, but it's the best we've got right now because we have to make do with all of the different parties involved and make as many of them as happy as we can to maintain access. The places we access and we climb at is very sensitive. It's very rocky relationship. Can be good, can be bad, can be usually pretty bad. So this is especially true in southeast Queensland for a variety of factors. But yeah, there's lots of parties involved for this that make it really hard to deal with, mainly landowners. So if it's not on public land, national park, then it would be on private land because people are able to own cliffs and stuff on their land. And either maybe they don't want their liability because people are coming on their land, they get injured, they can get sued. Privacy, if you're buying land out in the middle where there's lots of mountains and cliffs and forests, you probably don't want random people coming on there at whatever time. So that can be an issue for them as well. Indigenous owners, so that's another party involved. Indigenous owners there's lots of Indigenous owners here in Southeast Queensland. You've got a big collection of them. And lots of the mountains and stuff that they climb, well, they don't climb, but that they hold.
The rights to.
Yeah, not the rights, but it used to be their land before we came and settled here. But it also holds deep cultural meaning to them.
Yeah, there can be sacred.
Yeah, like, sites and stuff where their ancestors, put artwork and stuff like that. So, for example, Mount Coolum, that is a very sacred landmark for them. Climbing is allowed and hiking is allowed, but there are certain parts of the mountain that you can't go to because of the cultural significance to that. And the other party is us users, like hikers and climbers who want to just climb for fun or whatever. But you also got to consider that we erode, the mountains and the pathways that we walk. And yeah, so those are the three parties that are mainly involved with any sort of area. And you got to keep everyone happy. There is obviously people in Indigenous owners and landowners who are on opposite sides of the spectrum. People go, I don't want any climbing whatsoever. People go, I love climbing, it's great. And most people fall somewhere towards the middle. So those guys on the outside make it really hard because they won't ever agree. The guys in the middle, they can sort of change it up as long as everyone's happy. That's how we can maintain. But there is an organisation that helps maintain access. Whoop. There is an organisation that helps keep everyone happy, or tries to at least, and maintain access. ACAQ is the Queensland organisation. So the Australian Climbing Association of Queensland, New South Wales has their own, Victoria has their own, every state has their own. But one thing to keep in mind compared to other countries is our organisations are state level. They're not a national organisation. And this means that they're usually volunteer run. They don't have a ton of resources to basically mean that, yeah, go do whatever you want, we'll support you. So a lot of it comes from everyone's own blood and tears, basically, while they're doing that. They do all like the policy changes and, writing to all of the governors and stuff, speaking their side of the story to help keep the places open. So for example, I'm not sure if you've heard, but there is a lovely mountain range down in Victoria called Arapley's. And Arapley's is a very historic and massive mountain range with lots of traditional climbing. And that has over 6,000 climbs there, and they are closing like 80% of it off, gone, in the new legislation that they've passed. And obviously no one has been consulted, and ACAQ will put a letter in, they have put a letter in to sort of change that and make it better and try and keep it open for everyone. So
the unfortunate thing is that's not just the case with just climbing either.
Yeah.
Like I ride dirt bikes and I used to do a lot of trail rides, and the amount of trails that are closed now, the amount of tracks that are closed, the amount of mountain bike trails that are closed, the dirt bike trails that are closed, and they're just,
yeah,
it's almost like they don't want us outside anymore.
Yeah, so it's, yeah,
riding a bike.
It's not just a climbing issue. It is mountain bike riding, it's hiking, it's everything. And there's lots of different complex factors about it. The best we can do is not make people mad. ACAQ do a lot for us, but they can't do everything for us. We do have to take some responsibility, and that's typically because climbers need a good reputation, that we're treating the land with respect. But as you can tell, There's always a bad apple in the bunch. So there's always a bad few people who ruin it for everyone else. So yeah, the best we can do is educate as many people as we can about it, so that if you go out, you don't ruin it for everyone. Do you know what I mean? And the main thing is, like, what can we do about it? Well, we're educating you, but it's also so that you can follow ethics and rules of the climbing areas you're going to. And the main thing is a lovely little thing called Leave No Trace. Has anyone heard of Leave No Trace? Yeah. Anyone not heard of Leave No Trace? I didn't know of it before I started climbing, so I wouldn't expect everyone to know of it. It didn't get taught to me in school, apparently. Leave No Trace is a worldwide organization, but it's a set of principles that you should follow anytime you're outdoors. Not just climbing, but hiking, mountain bike riding, all of that stuff. And its principles are: plan ahead and prepare, travel on designated paths, dispose of waste properly, leave what you find alone, no fires, respect wildlife, and be considerate of other visitors as well. Plan ahead and prepare. Obviously, you don't want to go out climbing when it's wet, so make sure weather is great. You also don't want to go climbing on a mountain that is closed. So make sure you plan ahead. Don't climb a climb that has animals that are nesting on that climb, and that's also another thing. Travel on designated paths. Anytime that you walk over any sort of plants or bush bash through the bush, you are actually causing erosion. So you should always stay on designated paths to get to the places you climb, so you don't cause more erosion. Even if it's a 5-meter shortcut through a bush, you're going to cause more erosion, and if people keep doing that and think it's the right path, then it will make another path, and then you'll have 60 paths going to the same thing. So a very popular crag that we'll probably head out to when we go outdoor climbing is Andromeda in the Mount Gungun, and that's a very popular crag, and there's lots of intertwining paths that lead to the same spot. Dispose of waste properly. This is a main one. Your apple cores and your banana peels and your orange peels, they are obviously biodegradable, but you can't throw them away in the bush. They are edible, yes, but they can actually take from like 2 months to over a year to decompose, if not eaten. And it depends on the conditions, obviously, but that's a lot longer than you probably would have thought.
The biggest one that I learned, because I went to a school that was quite like a sustainable, environmental friendly kind of school.
Yep.
We'd go out and they'd say it's not native to the area, so don't throw it away. If it's native to the area, like say you go somewhere where there's lots of blueberries and you drop a blueberry, it's fine because it's native to the area, but anything that's not native to the area you have to take with you.
Yeah. So any sort of food probably won't agree very well with the animals that are in that area as well. Dispose of waste as well. That includes your own waste as a human. Obviously, you need to go potentially do your own business in the bush.
Bring a shovel.
Bring a shovel, that's correct. So if you're going for a number one, make sure you aren't on the main trail. Walk off the trail. You do have to say that to some people, so make sure you're off the trail. That is probably the only time you're probably going to be off a main trail at least. And if you're doing a number two, how big of a hole do you have to dig?
Is it more than 15 centimeters?
It is 30 centimeters, the size of an A4 or a ruler. Okay, so it is pretty big, and you have to cover it up. Don't leave it out in the open. Don't cover it with leaves. Toilet paper, you have to pack that out with you. Obviously, it doesn't exist in nature. Don't pack it in with the poo, okay? No fires. Some places there are fires allowed. Go with the rule, no fires allowed. If you can use a fire, make a fire pit, okay? Don't let it burn and make a bushfire.
This is just from the scouting person. If there's a spot where there's already been a fire, use that spot. Don't make a new spot because it just wrecks more ground.
Yeah. Cool. Professional scout.
Since I was 6.
Yeah. Respect wildlife. Don't go egging on wildlife. Please don't. Oh, did I skip leave what you find alone? Yeah, I think I did. Leave what you find alone. So rock stacking and rock hopping are probably the main two things. So grabbing rocks out of the ground to stack them up or skip them across the water through a lake or a river or whatever. Stuff like that is destroying the micro ecosystems of like the little animals, and you shouldn't do it. Respect wildlife. Yeah, don't go egging on wildlife, and be considerate of other visitors. Don't play super loud music, stuff like that, because everyone is there wanting to have a good time, so don't ruin it for other people as well. If you're hogging climbs, you know, offer to move away so that people can climb the climb if you're not climbing it, or you've left your rope up or whatever, stuff like that. But yeah, so that's the main theory stuff, which is great. I'm going to take this time to let you all have a little quick break. Feel free to get up and have some food, or go to the toilet if you need to. There's only one toilet. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get hands-on with some... we're going to get hands-on next with gear. That's probably a part that you guys will be pretty fun about. And then... yeah, we'll keep going from there. So feel free to get up and I'll move a table and whatnot.
Good job. Where is it going?
Just right in the middle.
Yeah, but do you want it to be turned the other way? Okay.
Cool. You guys all look seated, which is good. I'm glad I don't have to be like, sit down. Types of climbing gear is what we're up to next. There's lots of types of climbing gear, as you can literally look around and see what we have in the shop. But also, from my personal collection, I've spent way too much money. But yes, according to this one who controls the budget.
Remember, Mitch, that keeps you alive.
Exactly. Climbing gear can be expensive. That is my PSA to you. If you buy the wrong gear, then you have to buy more. But it also saves your life. It's life protection gear, at least most of it is. And then a lot of it is personal preference as well. I'm going to hold up some things, and I want to see how good your knowledge is. I'm going to start off with something easy. Helmet. Spectacular. It's not a brain protector. I mean, that's not what it's referred to anyway. What about this? Woo! Headlamp, head torch. Cool, cool. I'm going to get to something harder. Carabiner. What type of carabiner is this?
The silver one.
A quick one. Quick release. I don't know. No, not release. Draw. Flicky one. Snap. I don't know.
It's a snap gate carabiner because it snaps close. What about this?
Auto lock.
It's a twist carabiner. Anyone know what this is? A cam, nice. I got some experts. This goes in a crack and it cams. It cams and it holds and it pushes pressure on the outside of the crack. And basically, if you fall, it will not come out. No. Fun fact about these guys is they used to be called Friends, and they still are, because the guy who designed them, they were very secretive at the time. He was an engineer and he was a climber, and they were super secretive, and his friends, when he was prototyping them, would say, "Have you brought the friends with you today?" as like a secret word. And it just stuck, and that's how the brand Wild Country was born, and that is why Wild Country, the brand, still calls them friends. But other brands will call them different things. There's totems, dragons. They make them sound cool because they do protect your life. What about this? It is a nut. Okay, yeah, I know. Some of you look at me like, why would they call it a nut? What about...
You're not going to answer the question?
No, because I don't know. I don't know why they call it a nut. But anyone know what this is?
Big nut.
A big nut. Pretty close, honestly. Hmm?
Big boy?
No. Well, this brand calls it a torque nut, but it's actually referred to as a hex. It's basically a really big nut with a, I don't know, not a wire, but a sling.
Is that torque with the Q? Like the...
Yeah, yeah. Nice, let's go. Cool. What's this?
Quick draw.
Quick draw. Cool. What's this?
Another quick draw.
Yeah, it's also a quick draw. It's referred to as an alpine draw because it can extend. If I clip one side, it can extend out, so you can get something with a bit more length. But the whole point of this is there's lots of different types of gear, all right? And every piece of gear has its own purpose. Nice, yes. Yeah, every piece of gear has its own purpose, has its own use. I didn't even point out a harness or anything. Oh, does anyone know what this is?
Knee pad.
Ah, nice. Helps you with your knee bars. But all your pieces of gear can be derived into two categories. Yeah? Soft gear and hard gear. Yeah? That's all I'm going to give you. I'm going to get you guys to come up, and I want to split you off into two groups. I want one group of, so I'm going to take, who? Everyone in the back bench, further, you can be one group. You're going to be the soft group. And everyone else can be... and everyone else can be the hard climbing group.
Bags of nuts.
Stay hard, boys.
Okay. So, everyone in the front, you can be responsible for all the hard equipment, and everyone in the back can be... All right, we're all adults here. All adults.
You're not.
I want you all to grab a piece of gear belonging to your category. So, and we're going to make sure that we categorize them, and I'm going to test you all at the end to make sure you've done it right. Okay? I'm not going to tell you what exactly a soft gear and hard gear is. I want you to try and figure it out, okay? So if you all want to stand up, you can pop your stuff underneath and come grab something. Everyone who was in the front 2 rows was hard. Everyone in the back 2 rows was soft.
On the body is soft, and everything that's on the wall is hard.
I figure if it hits you in the head and it hurts, it's hard.
That's probably a lot of the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Nico hits me in the head, I'll get over it.
He's like, no.
It's got. That's pretty
It
hard.
goes on the wall.
The door,
That's
the
pretty-
doohickey is
What
hard.
do you say, Mike?
The helmet is hard.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe he's just making this up. Just to mess with it.
No, you said you're a gear nerd.
Yeah.
Definitely know.
Oh, this isn't hard. Sounds like myself.
You said you wanted the nuts.
I did. No, I got
That
one.
was your
Right,
official.
nuts.
We can have the big nuts, Jack.
Oh, the big nut. I'm very blind. Where is it?
And I've got a good halfer. All right, pop your gear down. Pop your gear down. Hard gear over here, and then soft gear on this side. Well, what you guys think is soft gear, at least. And then feel free to have a sit back down once you've done that. I think I know why they're called nuts. Why? You put them on the harness and look. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, he put his nut on the table.
Okay, so what have people grabbed? Cool. All right. So, hard gear is something that is typically metal, or it will last a lifetime before you will never have to retire it unless it wears through. Soft gear is anything that is fabric that will break down. Typically, within 5 years, you will have to replace it. It does change from manufacturer to manufacturer. Some ropes are 10 years, some harnesses are 5 years. Read the script, read the little 10, 50-page book that tells you what is what. But I'll let you know, everyone who did the soft gear, you guys are awesome because you got everything correct. Harnesses, obviously soft. They do have some hard buckles in them, but the actual major stuff will break down over time. 5 years typically. Most harnesses, if you are wearing them when you're going out, they won't last 5 years. The main point, your belay loop will sort of wear through over time. Woo! Apparently I can't pick things up. What we have here, yeah? You don't know what you picked up, did you? This is what we call a dog bone, okay? Yeah, a dog bone. It's what connects the carabiners with a sling, yeah? It's a sewn sling between the two carabiners, and you have a rubber stopper that prevents one of the carabiners from being really floppy, yeah, to make it not be in awkward positions when you fall. This is soft gear because it's a sling. It will wear down within 5 years. This is pretty obvious. It's all soft. It's sewn fabric, yeah. This is sewn fabric too. This is not super important in terms of like you have to replace it after 5 years because it's not personal protective equipment. It's not like a harness that's going to keep you alive. It's something that's going to keep you in an E-bar basically. And same with these guys. Technically it is fabric, it's soft gear, but it's not PPE. And it's got some fabric in there too. For my hard guys out there, there's a few things on this side that is wrong, okay? Helmets are actually soft gear because they have fabric on the inside, yeah? The actual, what you would call like the shell or the grey bit on the inside of your helmet actually deteriorates over time as well. So you do need to replace this within 5 years, yeah? Or 10 years, depending on how you store it and stuff. So,
sorry, are climbing helmets the same as a lot of other helmets in that if you do have some sort of accident or hit them hard on something, you've got to replace it? Like, does it have the interior?
it does. So if there is any form of cracking, obviously like if you get hit in the head with a rock, right, and the actual helmet itself cracks, obviously it won't be any more good. If you're just dropping it, which I would not recommend you to do because you do want to keep it over time, but if you just drop it like once or twice, that's fine, as long as there's not any like obvious signs of wear. They are actually quite strong, and climbing helmets compared to like cycling helmets and other helmets are actually rated for falls from a top and from the side impact. So if you fall and you flip upside down and you hit the wall from the side, you're still going to be protected, unlike like cycling helmets. Quick draws. This is soft gear. This has a dog bone that is soft. So it's actually technically soft gear because you have to replace the dog bones after they wear through or within 5 years. But it's more so you can keep the carabiners themselves. So carabiners, because they're all hard gear, you can keep those. These will never need to be replaced unless they wear through. So eventually you'll wear through them and they'll get super sharp and you can't use them anymore. but if they don't have wear, you can use them however long you want. They're a lifetime warranty. But the slings are not. That one's sort of going to go in the middle because it is basically hard and soft, but you do have to replace it. Cams, what do we think?
Mostly hard.
The sling down the bottom is soft gear. You do have to replace it after 5 years. Yeah. These things can get reslung because it's actually sewn in, so you can't actually take it off yourself, and you can't put one on yourself because you actually have to sew it into the specific manufacturer stuff. You can replace it with cord. I won't teach you how because I'm not liable for that. But yeah, so it is technically soft gear. You have to get that replaced. So it's also sort of going to be in the middle because you do have to get it replaced after 5 years. What's this? Yes, a torque nut or a hex. Now, this hex is what? What do we reckon?
Soft gear.
Soft gear because of the sling in the middle. You can re-sling it yourself. It's pretty simple. It's sort of just like cord. It's not as complex as a cam. You do have to replace that. The actual nut, the metal part itself, you don't have to replace unless it wears through. What do you think? Hard? You guys are correct.
It's not gonna like rust away.
You don't think so?
It does have friction, but
What do you reckon?
hard.
Hmm?
Bearings in it?
It does have bearings in it.
You can re-oil. Oh, it would just be like a less fluid.
This is hard gear, yeah. It's all metal, okay? It's all metal. It doesn't wear unless you wear it through, yeah? So you'll notice most of the stuff is more so you have to replace it over time, except for your purely metal stuff, yeah? And you can get like sort of hexes with wire instead of with this, and they'll last longer. You can get like quick draws like this that have a metal dog bone. Obviously they're heavier. You wouldn't use them for outdoor climbing, you'd use them for gym climbing. That's what they usually connect to the wall so that they don't have to replace it. These guys, typically lots of them will have these slings on them, but there are a few cams that don't have a sling and then you don't have to replace it. But you also have to be careful, the inside of the cam itself can also be fabric, okay? It can have a sling on the inside and not wire, yeah? So, yeah. And obviously helmets, they're soft. They're not really like, you don't have to, they're mainly hard gear. It's just like the chin strap and stuff that will wear down. So if you have a helmet that's 10 years old, you probably want to replace it. The main thing is when you replace gear, okay, if you yourself don't trust the gear, you probably want to replace it, okay? A 5-year rule from when you first use it is typically the rule of thumb, but it's not the required, like it's not legally required unless you're doing like industrial stuff. So yeah, if you don't trust it yourself, you should probably get it changed. That's mainly all of that. Does anyone have any questions about the gear? No? Anyone want to touch a piece of gear that they haven't touched? No? No? Play around with a cam? No? No, you guys aren't interested in that? Cool.
Where do we buy such good gear from?
Ah, I'm glad you asked. Nah, there is lots of places to buy stuff from. Obviously, you're good old locals here, okay? Yeah, shameless plug. That being said, we don't stock everything in the world, as you can see. We only have a very small store, and there are other things. You can definitely buy things online as well. The things that you don't want to buy online, especially if you're trying second hand, is anything that's going to be like PPE, so personal protective equipment, that you don't know the history of. So yeah, sure, buy your climbing shoes through Facebook Marketplace if you want to save some money. But mainly, like, if someone were to sell you a helmet on Facebook Marketplace, do you know if it's been dropped 100 meters or not? And likewise with a piece of metal, you probably don't unless they specifically tell you. And would they tell you if you're like, oh, it's been dropped, I don't want to buy it anymore? So you just got to keep that in mind when you're purchasing stuff like that. Obviously, there are pretty good deals, but if the deal is too good to be true, there's probably something wrong with it. And you always probably want to ask them why they're selling their gear. Oh, you know, they could have some pretty bad reasons why they're selling it. Some people sell their gear because they've submerged it in paint. Yeah, that's a story. Yeah, just to give you guys a heads up. But then they cleaned it off with chemicals. And obviously, you don't want to do that. Yeah, chemicals are really bad. Sunscreen.
There's law there, and I really want to know the law.
There's no law. Nope. Sunscreen and Mozzie spray also wears down anything soft good related. It'll wear it down quicker because it's still got chemicals in it. But with that in mind, do we feel like going over the last point of knots? Yeah? We've got basically 15 minutes until we're meant to finish up for the night. So, knots. The scout guys, I'm sure. Oh, Regan, you're a scout.
He's a lazy with the training.
You'll probably know, so I don't want to hear from you guys. And whoever has outdoor experience, I don't want to hear from you. What is the... because I want to make sure that the new guys will try and guess. What is the most important knot you need to learn for climbing?
Figure eight.
Figure eight. It is what climbers call the king of knots because it will do everything for you, basically. 99.9% of the time, if you can tie a knot, you'll probably be tying a figure eight, especially to start out with, to secure yourself into the rope to climb. So you definitely want to be able to get it right. And it's one of the easiest knots to check and identify because it's super easy to look at and see if it's tied correctly. So yeah, it is the most important knot. So I got some rope here. Do we want to try and tie a figure eight? Yeah, I also have some more rope here. So, figure eight. We're going to start with the end of a rope. We're going to dangle that one down and have our thumb in the middle so we have a bit of a hill. Yeah? Looking at that, we're going to bring that end of the rope around behind the strand. Yeah? Bring that end back through to the front.
It's a double one.
So that you have a little bit of a twist. And then with that end, you poke it straight through. You should see a bit of an 8. If you see a pretzel like so, that doesn't look like an 8, it looks like a pretzel, you haven't done enough loops around, so you need to wrap it around one more time. And if you see it look really weird, you've done one too many loops. So if it doesn't look like an 8, that's what we call a figure 9. So like that, should look like an 8. That is what we call a figure 8, but it's unthreaded. So, thumb in, wrap it behind. Yep, you're behind. Bring it all the way back to the front and poke it straight through the front. Yep, but remember you're keeping the same strand. So ready? Bring it behind. Bring it all the way to the front and poke it straight through.
Like so.
Yeah.
You wouldn't put that through on us.
You do what?
You do the bite.
You do the bite.
That way you can put the bite through the carabiner.
Makes sense.
Well, it's not a free carabiner, it's free beers.
So
Like
sometimes I don't
something
know how
about
much is
piss?
too
What?
much. She wasn't watching, but I knew that
It's through the
and then
harness
I
strip,
put
right?
them.
You
Oh,
can do
okay.
that
That
if you don't have a
lives.
carabiner. You can re-thread it onto the harness loop. But if you
Yeah.
have a carabiner,
Yeah.
you just put it on the bite.
Carabiner.
So that is what we call a figure eight. This is an unthreaded, that's right. This is an unthreaded figure eight, or just a standard figure eight. It looks like an 8 if you trace it around.
Twist it twice.
Yeah.
Put the right strand through the and she stops.
Now there is a slightly different variation of this, is what we call a figure eight on a bite. Yeah. Basically, on a bite, it's the exact same thing, but a bite is a loop of rope instead. So instead of starting with the end, you actually start with 2 strands of rope or a loop. You do the same thing, so bring it up, wrap it around, and poke it through the front.
This will be really hard because you guys have less rope.
Yeah, if you have less rope, it's a lot harder.
That's right. You just want to dress it.
You'll notice now you have a sort of like a lasso, basically, almost. And then you have some tail at the end as well. This is what that looks spectacular, Jesse.
I dressed it and everything.
Yeah, nice. Looks good.
Not for you.
How do you get the figure eight?
So one on bite.
Yeah,
So bring it down,
down,
wrap it around,
and then straight through.
straight through. How's everyone going? Good? Good, good, good.
So like if you want to use 2 strands, and then basically you want it to go through the back.
If you're having some struggle, there is a diagram right there.
Just line up so it's like parallel instead of twisted.
It's not binding.
That's for 2 separate pieces.
Yeah, or with an end.
Is that the re-threaded?
Oh, this one.
That's correct. You just
Sorry.
dress it.
What did you do?
At noose.
We're not on that one.
Don't teach the depressed people how to kill themselves.
We'll figure it out on our own.
I find it kind of weird that the depressed people are wanting to learn how to climb with big mountains.
My whole goal is to free solo and
This
basic.
one, and then we'll put it together, and that's what we call
Is that a figure eight?
Sure is.
Figure eight
See how it just looks a little bit neater?
Yeah, it does. Except you would have 2 separate ends.
She has autism.
No, I just did a training
Don't
course.
all 3 of you.
Stop saying people know.
I'm not diagnosed.
You stop seriously.
So, I have tied 2 figure eights right here. 2 figure eights, back to front, front to back. Okay, I'm gonna pass it around so each of you can see it. Just have a look at it and then pass it on. And you'll notice that both of them are a figure eight, but they look slightly different. Just show people.
I was like, what?
Are they just twisted?
They look slightly different, don't they, Jesse?
I'm just seeing the show go.
So they're supposed to flow in a specific pattern. So that way they like are fluffy once you go. Pardon? Yeah, basically.
So, with our figure eights, there is a lovely term we call to dress them, okay? It's a very important thing because it allows you to identify the knot easier. Obviously, if I were to give you a good analogy, if you were to go out on the street and be undressed, it wouldn't look as good as you being dressed, right?
I beg to differ.
Jack's pretty good.
We're talking about rope here, so.
There.
So when you're tying a figure eight, you always want to make sure it's nicely dressed which means that there shouldn't be any pieces or rope that are crossed over. So every piece of rope should be nice and parallel to each other. So every 10 pieces of rope in the knot.
Tuxedo?
Almost, it's almost dressed.
I forget a sock. Oh, yeah.
That top part, it crosses over. It's undressed. There's a piece that crosses over.
Oh, yeah. Can you just fix it from that point? or do
Yeah, you
have to undo
can.
it?
What do you mean by dress it correctly?
You need to make it look nice so that there is no strands crossing over each other.
Did you say you're autistic? Aren't I supposed to like already see that and be like, that's not right?
The easiest way is to flatten the knot by just pulling some rope through and making it super flat.
Why is that so aesthetically pleasing?
If you can make it super flat, you're able to tell if there is any twists or turns or crosses in it very, very easily. Yeah? If you make it super flat, follow it like a racetrack all the way around. You can tell if there's any twists or turns. And then for the outside strands, the ones that are on the very outside, you just flip them away. And then you can tighten all 4 strands individually to tighten it completely all the way up.
Nice. Thanks.
Better, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started playing too. I was like, nice.
This man's got the harness on and everything. He's got to practice. When are we going? Like now?
I'm going in June, abseiling. I get to chuck my kids off a cliff.
Woo!
Yay.
And then put them on the rope.
They always enjoy going abseiling because they go, Phoenix gets to chuck us off a cliff. Who's coming? I'm like, yay!
Do you send them head first? Or?
I'm not allowed to.
Unfortunately, I have to do a bit of indoor abseiling.
Do you like good rope pushing session?
I want to leave this spot, so I want to do that. If I go from the bite, so a little bit, that's
Don't do that. So.
If you're into it.
I'm going to lay that flat.
You are just so lost.
Easy.
I tuned in and I was like, what? Yeah.
We're all about that.
Oh, wait. That's why we're allowed to talk about it. It's not taboo.
And if they're below, we just say it's sex ed.
I'm going to get your free card.
No, it's the only thing that lets me work at my job.
If it's facing us, we want always the top.
You technically
The
don't.
rope goes through all 3 of these hoops? Or just-
So just the bottom and the top.
Oh, bottom and the top.
Yeah. And you need to tie your figure 8 first.
Good point. Can't wait to meet you for the first time again.
Yes. When we'll be. No, you'll never meet me apparently. Does it matter which way? Like,
Not really. No. You can do it through the front or through the back.
No, I mean,
if you have your blue card.
would you want it like
You're not
try
allowed to
closer
know
to the one
or be
end, like
friends
close
with
to the
anyone
end you're
who's
going to put
interested
in?
I mean, for the rope that you have, no, it doesn't. But yeah, obviously, if you're tying, you'll tie in one end of the rope.
Yes.
We work with someone who indulges daily.
Mm-hmm.
Probably good at that answer. They don't pay that much attention.
They don't, but it's like technically a law.
I'll take this from you.
It's like they won't do anything.
Another thing to keep in mind for your figure 8 is this little end part. You always want to have enough rope at the very end so that the end doesn't come back through the knot and untie itself. Sarah, how long of an end do you need? What are they teaching scouts?
30 centimeters usually.
30 centimeters? Yeah. Yeah.
That's the safety one because we're usually dealing with children, so
Yeah.
it's better to be safe than sorry.
2 handfuls at the end is typically the easiest way. And if you have small hands, it still doesn't matter because it's plenty of rope. But technically it is 10 times the diameter of rope. So if it's a 10 mil rope, you need 10 centimeters. If it's an 11 mil rope, you need 11 centimeters. Thicker ropes are easier to untie. Thinner ropes are really hard. They singe up super, super hard. So, yeah.
Like this man's about to find out.
Yeah, so I just looked at it going, oh.
Now, how does this not apply to you and climbing? Like Lavin is showing us. He's tying into his harness. So you would use that end, or that figure 8, and you would thread the end of the rope through your harness, and then you would tie it back through. So it would look like this with a singular piece of rope, and it would end up looking exactly like a figure 8 on a bite, but it's just tied into your harness at the very end. So this part here would be tied to your harness, and then that's what would be tied into you. So if I were to do it to myself, I definitely didn't give myself enough. Wow.
I don't think you're that. Almost need like a zoom in on you.
Wrapping it through, keeping it nice and flat, coming around. And that's...
And he's ready to climb. That's how they used to do it in the old
This
days.
is how they used to do it in the old days.
Before harnesses.
Before harnesses were a thing. Yeah.
How are you going to fall and not have it just...
Yeah. No, that's how they had it tied.
Around the legs area.
Safety back then wasn't a priority. They didn't even know the mountains they were climbing were good. Now, if you get really, really fancy with a figure 8, you can start adding variations to it as well. Obviously not for tying your harness in, but for other things like anchor building, coming into it in later on. This is what we call a bunny ears figure 8. So if you have 2 little points that you can attach it to, you can abseil on this or something like that. Or you can use it. It does get safer, because what happens if one strand were to cut? You have a second strand as a backup. You wouldn't tie this into your harness because you're on one rope anyway, but for any sort of anchor building in scouts, doing abseiling, pretty important. So.
Oh, is that you would do that with 2 ropes, or just
No, just one. Just one. Yeah.
Just 2 anchors attached.
Yeah, basically. It's 8 o'clock on the dot. That's basically the end. Get some hands-on practice to some knots or some hitches. Get out. Yeah, get out.
So when we do the top rope, would
Yep.
you be just connecting the rope to our harness, not a carabiner?
So
That's correct, right?
that is correct.
I can give you that if you're.
In a normal climbing scenario, you would actually tie into the rope because you don't want at any point to have the risk of the carabiner to unclip. That's why they always use 2 carabiners that are opposite so that they don't risk it unclipping. But if you are newer, there's always that risk of not doing the carabiners up and stuff. So.
One thing I've noticed, because like I've watched a fair bit like YouTube and whatever, one thing I've just randomly noticed is when people are climbing heaps, they never have it between their legs. They're always pushing the rope off to their side, like with their feet or something. Like it's never.
It depends on the cliff and depends on the way the rope is positioned and how you're going to fall. The main thing is you always want the rope between you and the cliff, because as you fall, it's going to get weighted, and if it's behind you, you can get your leg caught around the rope and you can flip upside down and hit your head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like obviously there.
Yeah, and it's going to tighten and you're going to flip upside down. So that's why it's always between either that way or like this, and it's always between that. Your leg's not like this. Cool, 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 cool. And quick little recap, just to finish off the night. We went through all the different types of climbing and the different disciplines involved. Climbing around us and the organisations, leave no trace, types of climbing gear, and a little bit of knot tying. That's basically it. I'll leave this time to Q&A if you want any sort of answers, questions.
What is defined as aid climbing?
Aid climbing is basically where, no, you're not actually climbing, you're using pieces of gear or things to help you up a mountain. That's why it's called aid. You're using gear to aid you up. So you're not actually climbing per se. You're using like things like hooks to literally sit down and put all your weight on, and then using a hook and like a step ladder basically, and stepping up through that to reach higher, put another hook in, and then sit back down and walk up that ladder. And you're doing that for like 500 meters basically. But you don't have ropes. Yeah, you're using steps that you make along the way. There's also things like pitons or pitons, depends how you pronounce it, that you actually hammer into the wall and then you clip it for your own personal safety and stuff like that. You bolt things yourself to use it. It's basically any way you can get up that wall. There's not too much aiding around anymore because lots of people prefer to actually climb it, but on routes where it's flat, people will just like go up, they'll like bolt something, they'll sit in that, and then they'll go up and they'll hammer in another bolt or something like that. But you actually can't get any other protection in.
Thank you.
Is wood chipping like rocks to make holds easier? Would that be counted as aid?
Wood, well not wood, but rock chipping, so chipping holds and stuff into climbs is very frowned upon because the way people see it is you're changing that rock purely for yourself to get up that wall to make it easier, even though you're robbing someone in the future being able to do the climb without that. So if you ever chip, and it's very obvious if you chip a rock because you can tell it doesn't flow with any other holds on the climb, or you're like, oh, that's really weirdly a hold, why would that be a hold? Then there's been instances where you get attacked, obviously like verbally attacked, not physically attacked, or no one will climb your climb. They'll rate it 0 stars. It'll just never be climbed because it's just against the ethics to chip holds. In other countries, like if you're doing via ferrata, they don't care because they're already putting metal things in the wall to help you climb along. But in any sort of actual climbing, chipping holds is not allowed, or it is frowned against. Any other questions?
Yeah, I was going to add as well, we're going to do session 2 in 2 weeks' time. So
29th.
It's like the 29th of May. And it is a little bit different because we haven't fully decided when we'll be going outdoors because we weren't sure who was going to show up. So basically session 2 will be like, when should we, there'll be a poll in like the thing, just say like when you think you could go outdoors anytime after the 29th of May. But session 2 will be more geared towards how to tie in, how to belay, so that when we do go outdoors, like especially if it's all the same crew that's here tonight, that way when we go outdoors for this first time, we can literally just get straight into it and spend our time really well, instead of, like, I think we're still going to be doing teaching, but at least you won't all be oblivious. So that's the idea.
And I know I might have rushed through a few points of stuff, but it is an introductory lesson, so it's just a bit of a taster of something.
He ums and
Yeah,
ahs a lot, doesn't he?
I know, I do um and ah a lot.
Listen back to himself and...
Yeah. I know. Soph does that anytime she's editing a video of me. When you say, so many times. But I hope it was enjoyable. I hope it taught you something. At least something. One thing. Which is good.
Feel free to hang around if you want.
Yeah, we're not kicking you out, but
Share some foods.
yeah,
tea.
feel free to take all the sausage rolls you
We're
want.
happy to answer more knock questions or go through any other knocks if
Yeah.
anyone wants to.
Well, I do have a question.
Mhm.
How do you usually warm up out at a crag?
Me?
It's like
Just be quiet.
I climb. I jump on a really easy climb,
Yeah.
and then I sort of warm myself up. I wouldn't just jump on a hard climb.
Yes.
I would jump on something I know I can easily do. So like, if you were to compare it at the gym, I'd jump on like a blue outdoors, basically.
Yeah.
That,
Also,
for me,
these are
that's a
really
warm up.
dirty ropes, don't judge them.
They're a bit sandy. No worries. See ya. Any other questions?
I just noticed in this lawn,
What?
you have like fingerboards, but none of them are on the wall for people to.
Yeah, we have a woody over there.
You just can't.
Just, it's on the other side.
Stupid.
We had to move to get all the chairs in and stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Come back
unfortunately.
tomorrow, it'll look like a completely different story.
Yeah.
Pretty sure the floor's been different every time.
That's what everyone said to us who's walked in. They're like, oh my god, there's like all this new. And I'm like, yeah. Yeah. We got to bring out the other thing as well because we got more stock. Makes us feel good. We're like, oh my god, there's gear. But yeah. Yeah. Any other questions? No? Everyone's just hanging out. Oh.
So for your planned trip, will most people need their own helmets?
So
So we have
Yeah.
quite a lot of gear between
We've got
us. This
double.
is the thing. So it's organised by Hakavina. It's a community thing. We're just trying to be really careful about what happens. Good thing is, like, most of us, like, we know each other. Hopefully, like, nobody will be like, you know, whatever. We do have quite a lot of gear between the both of us. We could probably do about 3 or 4 people. Harnesses only really have to be worn when you're belaying or climbing. So if you don't want to buy, we looked everything up yesterday. It's going to be, if you wanted to buy your very
Everything.
own kit, it's going to be at least $1,000. So
But that includes like ropes and quick draws and all of that stuff. But if you're just looking to get started with just like a helmet and a harness, it's definitely not going to be $1,000.
yeah, and you can share it amongst other
yeah.
people. But yeah, so also we say you need a helmet because we're part of a club and it was like you had to have it. You don't have to have a helmet if you don't want to. But otherwise,
Obviously, it's
definitely-
community.
Yeah.
I would thoroughly recommend a helmet. You do not know how many times you start climbing and then you hit your head on a rock above you because you're not looking.
Yeah.
But also, rock fall does happen, especially most places. There's lots of hikers that don't really know there's people climbing underneath them and they'll just kick things and throw things off. So that's something to be aware of as well.
Page's Pinnacle, it's really bad.
Yeah, because you have the very tippity top of the mountain that everyone walks out to and they go, oh, you know what's going to be really funny? If I just kick this rock off.
Yeah.
And then there's climbers underneath. Or they'll throw glass, like bottles, like they'll drink some beer and then they'll throw it off and stuff like that.
Somebody threw off a roast chicken off Kangaroo Point.
Yeah, yeah.
And it literally, some of us were climbing and it literally landed like on the ground. And we
Like
were
a full chicken that they've just eaten.
Yeah.
It was lunch delivered.
Yeah. It was like, it was crazy. We were like.
So you never know what's going to be falling, okay? Could be dinner, could be a rock.
Exactly. But yeah, we have a few bits and pieces amongst us. We'll bring it all next time and then we can figure out. But yeah, you don't have to buy the whole kit, especially on the day that we go out. Really, all you'll need is a harness and a helmet. That's literally all you'll need. Unless you're really interested in learning what we call cleaning her out, which we'll talk more about in the next
Getting your
session.
gear back.
But yeah, getting
after
your
you
gear
start
back.
climbing.
Because we can definitely teach that and stuff as well.
But yeah, and obviously, like the harnesses we have fit us. So if you're skinnier than me, or way bigger than me, my harness probably won't fit because it's a certain size. So that could be a restriction as well. Helmets are usually pretty good. Most people have the same sized head, usually, or it's got an adjustable dial. So that's something to be aware of as well. We'll try and share as much gear as we can to sort of make it easier, but climbing, especially outdoor climbing, you know, there is a bit of a cost involved to get started, but that gear does last, you know, 5 years like we spoke about, so, which is pretty good.
So you do plan to like kind of teach eventually like lead climbing as in these
Yeah,
outdoor events?
yeah, definitely. And
Just
obviously,
be really careful.
yeah, obviously, like guys, insurance is a thing. It's all community. We're not taking any like money to teach you guys. Don't feel obligated to buy from us if you see better deals elsewhere as well. You know, stuff like that. If you really want to get into that sort of stuff, but
Shit like that makes me want to buy here. Like, if there's something better, go buy somewhere else. I'm like, no, I'm not going to buy from here.
But yeah, usually there's only a few routes to actually get into outdoor climbing. Either you can go to Brisbane and join a club, yeah. You can find someone experienced who's willing to teach you either for beer or for free or whatever. Or you can actually get commercially qualified and pay for that. There are trade-offs. Getting commercially paying for someone to teach you something, they will teach you everything correctly, but you got to pay a lot of money. Going through the clubs, they will teach you everything you need to know, but you got to help out because it's all volunteer based and it takes a lot of time to learn everything, but they'll teach you right. If you're learning from your friends or people you've met, you're not exactly super sure if they know everything correctly, but you don't have to pay anything and they'll probably be going out with you anyway. So, you know, just keep that in mind for each of the trade-offs of the different avenues. Fortunately with climbing, it's not like super regulated in that regard where everyone learns the same way. People learn off friends, and it sort of filters out. Yeah, we've had some guys in the Blue Mountains going, oh, I think this is what the YouTube video said. Oh, it was a very scary day.
It was a really scary day. It's not what you want to hear when people are climbing above you. And
Yeah.
like, oh, I think this
Oh,
is
look
what
at
they
this
said on the
loose
YouTube
rock.
video.
So, yeah.
People are scary.
Yeah. Not us.
We promise. I guess so.
It is an adrenaline rush for a few people, especially when you fall on lead climb for the first time, because you.
Sweet. Well, you can go upside down as well. I like being upside down.
Oh, yeah, you can go upside down. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. It gets really uncomfy. Yeah.
It's nice to sit in a harness on top rope. That's fun.
Yeah.
Unless you're
Sitting-
6 pitches up and in a cave.
Yeah, that's a story for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Do you want us
yeah.
to? Oh, is there a bin for the?
No, just leave them somewhere.
Yeah, just chuck them on the plate or whatever. Yeah.
We are still open for business if it. No, okay.
No.
But we are.
You're so awkward. Yeah, you guys are good to go if you want to go. We're not keeping you around for anything.
Thank you so much.
That's all right.
Appreciate that.
Actually, because I'm going to piss barefoot.